Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us this evening. We have here the Net Wool Program webinar that's presented by Benita Litzen, who is the Director of Land Grant Office at Dine College. And we also have Kendra Russell.
I am Benita Litzen, Director of the Land Grant Office at Dine College. And I'm trying to share my screen. Sorry about that.
We see it.
So good evening. So I hope you guys can see the presentation. I'll be talking a little bit about our wool program here at Dine College. Just a little bit about myself. Sanjukin Schleido, Pachini Basin, Tiani, the Fido, the Nala, Auto Lead Nasha, and fortunate to work in my own community at Dine College, and really fortunate to work with my own people. And my passion has been agriculture from, I think, when I can remember having livestock and helping my parents on the farm. And just, just being a part of that way of life and growing up in that capacity has definitely been a privilege for me. My goals are to really try to create programs that benefit our people in regards to making things, creating more opportunities for our Dine people. And with that, like I said, I've been raised on the ranching way of life. And so I have seen a lot of challenges that have occurred to my grandparents, my parents, in regards to our way of life and how things have changed and some of the things that haven't changed to allow progression. So with that, I'm fortunate to be in this capacity to be able to create programs that benefit our Dine people, especially the farmers and ranchers. Our program is 100% grant funded. So every year we're looking for grant funding opportunity to allow us to do this work. And I have started at Dine College 16 years ago. And at that time, I was really trying to learn what extension was and what it's supposed to be like. And for that first year and even years before, like my graduate work, I used to take my father everywhere I went to see what he would be able to pick up as a Navajo producer. We've been to so many workshops throughout the country, even to Wyoming, wherever. And I asked, Josh, and so in those capacities, you see a lot of data being shared, especially with graphs and charts and things like that. And so sometimes that our elderly won't recognize or won't see that. So how do we make that kind of presentation receivable or applaudable or acknowledged by our producers to be able to learn this concept? Because they pretty much already know the concept based on what they have been doing throughout the years, and just sustaining what they have and making a way of life, because that's really what our people have done to sustain themselves and create their own food system in years past. So we're coming out of some of that phase, but I feel like there's a few folks that still want to carry on that legacy that our grandparents and parents have had throughout these as we continue to move into the future. So with that, our wool program really started with one of our extension agent, Felix Nez, who had been a part of our program. I say almost the same time I started. He was the first person I hired. And we created this program to really try to benefit our producers. And what we were seeing, a lot of producers were selling their wool to the border towns, and they were not too pleased with the prices that were available to them. In addition, it's vice versa. We needed to also educate our people in regards to what kind of wool our buyers are looking for. So there's various wool grade that needs to happen. So with that, we created this particular wool buy program. And I'm happy to say, well, happy to say that we're venturing into trying to create, learning from our challenges and through this whole pandemic, trying to create an improved method and improve opportunity that would continue to support the wool industry on Navajo, in addition to trying to create some sort of economic economic program that might go back to the producers. So with that, I'll start my presentation. I do want to mention, I'm not sure if Kadrell made it on the call, but he was texting me earlier that he was having difficulties. So if he's on the call and needs to talk, it'll be hard for me to kind of communicate with him to tag team this. I can't really see if he's on or not. Anyhow, I will proceed forward with our program. So let me do this. So why wool? I kind of mentioned it. Historically, wool has been important to our people in regards to a way to sustain themselves. After shearing, they would go to take the wool to the local, local trading posts. Either they would trade it for groceries, blankets, fuel, livestock feed, or other necessities that they might need. They also began to start weaving. So you see a lot of really good weaving, and I mean, like great weaving that has been established by our people. They also learned to clean, card, spin, and dye. And those were their added value products too. They could sell and trade those at a higher price when it's clean, carded, and spun at the trading post, and be able to share that with other people that might be weaving. So, they kind of bartered utilizing sheep wool and byproducts. And also, as mentioned, historically, the reason why we're one of the largest land-based tribes is because of the amount of animals that we have had. And so contributing to that, that's a huge factor in why our tribe is, tribal land is as big as it is. And so that's a huge factor in how we were able to, be placed on, I don't want to say fortunate to be placed on this reservation, but to have this large landmass. But, that's something that our people has struggled with and has been a part of that history. In addition, just today, honestly, I was trying to look up some current agricultural statistics, but back in 2010, in each of our states, honestly, from Arizona to Utah to New Mexico, the Navajo counties, we carried the most sheep in the state. So, say Arizona says sheep is number 3 in agricultural production. I think cotton's first, and then it goes on like that. But anyhow, we as Navajo people create that sheep industry for the state of Arizona because a large amount of that population of sheep is in these particular counties. And I wanted to just say that, but I was unable to find a link, and for some reason, maybe it was taken down or something. It wasn't allowing me to open that up. But we definitely could be major players in the wool industry, just like any other state that might be sheep production leaders. So here's just a picture of the sheep, and then where the fiber goes to the wool mill. Then it's clean, carded, dyed, wool, into different types of fibers, and then you put it into yarn, different things like that. And these are the byproducts that definitely come from the wool production. So a huge part of where the wool goes is clothing. So therefore, the wool mills prefer to purchase the higher quality, finer fleece wool. And so that's what they're looking for. And then yesterday, I had 2 meetings in regards to sheep this past 2 weeks. And although the wool market is down, and it looks like there's not a lot of trading going on, there is still movement happening for the finer fleece wool. And so based on our this past history of purchasing wool, and it turns out that we actually have a good number of producers that fit that fine wool quality. And so we're hoping to reach out to them and maybe create some sort of program, at least for the fine wool program, and maybe have that be sold separately because buyers are purchasing that in particular. Common practices on Navajo, what we're seeing across the Navajo Nation is we're seeing a lot of mixed breeds. As you all might already know, the Churro breed is one that really is identified with the Dine people, because as it was moving into extinction, there was a program where the Churro breed was brought back to a good number of population due to the Dine people. What ended up happening is a faculty member at Utah State University began placing the Churro breed with multiple Navajo Dine producers, and they began to increase that flock in that particular breed. So in that capacity, although Churro wool is considered a hair or coarse bred wool, and it's not particularly something that the wool males or the wool buyers want to see, there's also a group of Dine producers who have been utilizing Churro wool as a part of the niche market because of the near extinction of that particular animal, the hair breed, and the weavers indicate that they love to weave with the Churro wool and how it accepts, like the dye, the natural dyes and things like that. So definitely there's a group of weavers that really appreciate the Churro sheep. And so, and with that incorporation, I think that's a result of a lot of mixed breeds as we start bringing a lot of the English breeds in and mixing that up with the Churro. So we're seeing quite a bit of mixed breeds, which our buyers don't particularly like. So they would be put in a lower quality grade. So also some practices, we tend to shear a little later. Like I think shearing season started about a month and a half ago. And on the other side of education, it's normally, and it's a good practice to shear before they drop their lambs. And so we tend to drop our lambs first and then shear after. And I remember when we're shearing for a grandmother, her sheep were still pregnant, and she was pretty worried about, having to stress out the mom. But some things that we have to learn also, and the reason why shearing before lambing is important is that when you pull a length of your staple, which means the length of the fleece, you can identify where weaknesses happen within their whether it's their life cycle, nutrition, different things like that. So when you start to pull that wool apart, you see breakage in certain sections of the wool based on what types of things that might have contributed to that weakness in their wool at that time. So, when we talk about nutrition with sheep, we normally think about going into the winter months pretty, stressful, not enough forage on the ground. So if we're not having a good feeding program through the winter months, our wool strength weakens also. So that's kind of one of the practice that's out there. The other practice we have is we do breeding in the late fall, and we do like one lambing a year. In other places, they try to practice lambing 3 times a year so that they can increase production and have, in a shorter amount of time. just because, sheep gestation period is a lot shorter than like cattle or horses. So they in 2 years they could lamb 3 times. And that's what some other people have been practicing to try to get a little bit more out of their sheep production. A little bit about our wool buy. I apologize, but these are a little bit later numbers, but it really points to the fact that there is a need for this particular wool buy program. So what we had done annually up till pre-COVID, we had done an annual wool buy, and the first one started in 2012. And I think at that time we only worked with 3 or 4 communities, and we were able to only collect 12,000 pounds of wool. And at that time, what was given back to the producers was 8,453. Then in 2013, as the word got out, we started to grow a little more. We received 44,000 pounds of wool, and then what went back to the producers were $32,000. Then in 2014, it went to 80,000, and I think at this point we started reaching out to all of the different, the 7 communities on Navajo. So what we did is we went from Shiprock to Anna's first. We kind of went around to Crown Point, back into Taylor, to Tuba City, and come back down to Pinyon, Delcon, and Indian and Windrock. And so I don't have the particular amounts right now in regards to what community had what, but I did request that yesterday. So hopefully I'll have a little bit more data to move, moving forward. But I think this presentation really points to the fact that we do have a lot of wool producers, sheep producers, and folks who are selling their wool at different rates. And so through the wool buy program, and we averaged the dollar amount to the pound, and it came out to something like 53 cents a pound is the average that they're getting. There's a few, as mentioned, there's a few wool producers that are in the finer fleece. They were receiving anywhere from 80 cents to $1.25 a pound for their fleece. But a huge part of what this particular wool buy event was is to be an educational practice. So with our wool buy, we partnered with Black Mesa Water Coalition, Mid-State Wool, Teddy, and I forget his last name, but he's the one that bought the Mohair. And then we had Maine, the state of Maine had a wool industry, and we had a buyer come out and also help purchase some of the wool. I put Utah State University in there because they had been assisting us with the carcass and fleece evaluation with our research. And of course, there's New Mexico State University, who we definitely use their services in regards to bouncing off questions about marketing, those types of things. So as I mentioned, education was a huge component to our travel across the Navajo Nation, and basically having the producers understand what quality meant in regards to their wool production. So the things that they had to think about was the staple length, which is, I don't know if you guys can see my cursor, but here's the skin all the way to here. That's considered, how long this is considered the staple length. So these are staple length here. And then you have your coarse to fine wool. So it varies. So here's a table. So your fine wool is your furthest one to the left, and then your common breed and Churro, of course, is a hair that's not on this list, but it's considered a coarse wool. And then you see crimping, and these particular crimping, you kind of see the crimping here on where he's spreading the wool apart with his hands. You see like it's really like curly here and there. That's considered crimping. So the more crimping you have in a staple length is what they consider your microns. And so, and the fineness. So the more crimping you have within that staple length is considered finer wool versus when the crimping is a little bit further apart. So in this case, you can probably stretch this out a little more just because of how crimped it is. It may look shorter, but if you pull it apart, all the crimping will come out and they'll probably be pretty long. The other thing is cleanliness, making sure that there was no manure matter, dirt, debris, cockleburr was something that we saw with a lot of our producers. That reduces the price. So if the producers can clean their wool before they bring it in, they would get a little bit higher price. But if they did not, they would end up getting a lower price. The other thing is also sorting your wool, whether you understand what the quality is. So sorting them as, particular quality, or taking out the colors and making sure that's separate. Or if you have, say, a mixed breed and you're starting to try to transition out from the Churro breed, you might want to separate some of that mixed hair wool and bag that separate from your finer fleece, just so that you can get a little bit more on the finer ones versus the coarse one. But if you mix it all up, the coarse is going to take over the price of the wool. And then packaging. So we found that there was a lot of contamination in the wool. So it's not recommended to have like hay twine, wrap it up with tarp, those types of things, because that particular fiber also gets into the fleece, and that's considered contamination. It's very hard to take out. So they look at that. So they're looking at burlap bag was something we've been using. The other one is plastic. There's a large plastic bag that we've been putting the fleece into, and it's clear. They could see it. They could take a core sample and take a look at what's inside that bag. So just a little bit about that particular process. And then our sheep and wool research, we have done this for 4 years. We started in 2017 and we ended last year. So what we did is we worked with 10 producers, and we introduced the Sam Rams, the South African meat merino, to each of the producers. So we had a base weight and a base fleece analysis that was done with these producers. They've never been a part of our breeding program. They've never been a part of any of our programs. And so they signed on with us. We introduced, so the first year, and I don't have that data with me, but the first year our carcass weight was 23 pounds for our lambs. And that is way below the national average. And so around a little over 50 pounds is the national average. So the next year, we started gradually going up. So once we introduced the Sam Rams, the next year we had their lambing, and that's we ended up collecting that sample too. And that didn't change much because that's the first time we introduced the sheep, and the lambs were just tiny. So the main thing we had were birth weight and the following year's carcass evaluation, because the lambs were just little. So we didn't get much in that first year change. And then the second year, so we were able to finally see the carcass evaluation in the wool. And so we gradually increased in improvements. And by the third year, which means the second lambing of the particular research, we definitely started seeing 3 of the producers reach that carcass weight capacity of 50 or just below like 48 pounds. And then the wool of the newborn, the yearlings versus the ones that were there, for, as we started, definitely improved also on the microns, on the staple length, and on the fine wool side. And that was very evident when the wool buy began, because Lee, we didn't have, how do you say, the amount of weight that the amount of weight that we received in Lee, the price and the average was more like close to 70 cents a pound. And that's kind of our target audience of trying to get this new breed and the breeding program out. So definitely that has been working. Besides the 10 that were a part of this research project, we already were introducing the sheep, the rams, to the community. And we were already doing maybe like 20 producers rotating the rams around. So we had a good number of producers in the Taylor area who had been utilizing this breeding program, and therefore has really showed the quality of wool has improved with our help. So if you can understand what I meant, so the quality of wool was there. So even though we didn't get enough pounds, or the pounds that we were seeing prior, the prices of that particular wool was higher. So that with that, we definitely want to continue that moving forward. We're trying to seek additional funding opportunities to assist us in not just reaching our community where we're working, but maybe Western, and really identifying the areas that we saw that was challenged with poor wool production, and work with those producers. So we're a little bit excited about that. We're hoping to get some funding opportunity to continue to do the work that we are doing. And I think I saw Churro jump on, but I wanted him to talk a little bit about the next steps in regards to our plans at Dine College. So let me change my slide. So Churro, if you want to go ahead and start chiming in on, our endeavors moving forward on trying to bale the wool, store the wool, and that type of stuff. Well, we definitely learned a lot from our challenges from the wool buys, and I was talking about how we were not able to fit the truck capacity of 70,000 pounds. And that was due to folks bringing in wool at different sizes. So they were bringing it in with trash bags, different lengths. And so when we're stuffed, and they're not packed nicely, so when we're stuffing it into the trailers, we were not filling the capacity. So some of the buyers were thinking that was considered a loss to them, because what ended up going back to their yard was like 30,000 pounds, and they had to pay for the same trucking fee. So that was one challenge. And what we anticipate to do from here on out, based on those challenges, is to try and start creating a group of us that could grade the wool ourselves, so that we can sort the wool as they come in, and then be able to store it and pack it. So we are in the process of purchasing a baler right now. Hopefully this summer we'll get that. We're trying to concrete floor one of our barns, and hopefully we'll start holding a lot of this wool at the different quality, so that when we reach enough to fill a truck, we can call a buyer out and they could purchase the wool from us, and then we could definitely get that money back out to the producers. The downside to that is, as the producers were coming into the wool buy, they were getting a payment right then and there. This might have to delay that process, because we have to have enough inventory to fill the truck. But if we had some sort of person that might be able to purchase this wool offhand, we might be able to pay the producers quicker. But I think the best, the end product is hoping that we continue to work with our producers on creating a quality product, and being able to store that and find buyers, and hopefully we become a big part of the marketing piece of the wool industry, meaning we know what's fine wool, and instead we work directly with the mills and be able to have them purchase the wool straight from the producers, and we would just be that holding capacity for them. So that's kind of what we're working on right now. Of course, we would like a wool mill, but as we're learning a lot of things that still have to come with it. So like scouring, we're understanding that you need a water treatment plant nearby that's able to treat that water as you're scouring. So a lot of EPA regulations that have to go with that. But for now, as we continue to try to keep our program going, we're thinking that this would be the best avenue to go move toward, and just learning from the local the folks that we have been working with right now. Like I said, most folks are not purchasing wool at this time, and so it's hard for our producers to sell that wool. We also are learning that if we store it correctly, the wool can last anywhere from 3 to 5 years without losing any of its quality. So it hasn't really been tested beyond 5 years, but 3 to 5 has been, folks have been storing it, and still the quality had been there as long as you keep it in a dark space, what we're told. Dry conditions. We're also told that if it's directly on concrete, as these ones are, it can absorb moisture through the concrete. So putting it on a pallet and making sure that it's above ground is something that we're told. And the dark space was a part of moth getting into your wool and kind of degrading that product. So if it's in a dark area, you're not going to see much of that moth happening. If it's versus if it was in a lit area. So those are things that we're learning, and we're trying to figure out how this system would work. Just let me go back one more slide. So who we're working with on trying to develop this is Strongbow Strategies, which is a for-profit entity, of course, Dine College, and folks, the good folks that have, like you all, and New Mexico State University on making sure that we continue to do extension education on sheep production, and getting that particular education out to the communities. So that's our goal. And of course, we hope to do this across the Navajo Nation, and hopefully we start really improving the quality of our wool and being a part of the market or that industry. So with that, I almost made it through the end of our presentation, and then I got kicked down. I apologize for that. But now, just ask any questions that you might have. Some of the things that I did learn from our past few meetings is FSA wool program. What we were told to do is if we wanted to be able to help producers, we would have to find a certifiable scale that could be having the state's weights and measures come out and certify that scale and be able to share that back with. When we weigh the product, we can give that information back to FSA. And our understanding of the way that works is the producer would apply for FSA ahead of time, and then they would have to find a wool marketing program. So any of our trading posts or the folks who have been buying wool for more than 3 years is what we're told, to be able to certify the weight. And then once that ticket is created, they take that back to FSA and they get 40 cents. It says ungraded wool, so not even the different types of grade. It's just that process. So any producer can take advantage of that. We also understand that there's the same program for finer fleece, and I believe their price is 80 cents a pound for this particular program. So reach out to your a farm service agency and asked a little bit more about their wool program and, take advantage of that particular opportunity as our prices are low and it's hard to kind of get rid of the wool that we do have now. So a question, any other questions out there? You can use the chat box.
Feel free to go ahead and unmute yourselves if you do have a question, or you can go ahead and enter your question in the chat box. While some people are still thinking of questions, Benita, I do have a question. I think it was referring to one of your top slides. I think it was the third slide about the marketing. I saw Mohair. What is the difference between wool and the Mohair one? The fourth slide. Yeah.
Okay. You got it here. So mohair comes from the goat side. So you know how the Angora goat is considered mohair. So you see they have a longer staple length also, and they're kind of curly. That's the mohair that they're looking for. And so they buy it. That's a little bit more, how do you say, expensive in terms of what's going back to the producers. I think they were being purchased at $2 a pound. And there's not very many producers that have Angora anymore. Again, there's a lot of mixed breeding. We're seeing a lot of more boar goats across the Navajo Nation. So it's just the type of fleece, and it's considered a hair breed, but it's more finer on the goat side.
Okay, thank you. Like I said again, if you do have a question, feel free to unmute yourselves or you can use the chat box. And did you mention the more cripping in the wool, the finer quality it is, right?
Yes. So go back to the slide.
So would that consider like wool churro sheep?
You see it in churro, but as I mentioned, the churro side, they also have fine and coarse, but they're considered more on the hair breed. So for clothing, it's considered too coarse. But of course, they have their own grading scale too for that particular breed.
Okay, that's good to know. We actually have a question in the chat box from Barbara. Which wool from sheep do weavers prefer?
Ooh, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of our weavers, and there's a lot of groups of weavers, and they have been preferring the pearl wool just because you can see their staple length is a lot more, and they consider it a little bit. They think it's stronger, and I think they're the one that work with it and know that it's a lot stronger to be able to spin and card, and they use it more for our weaving. So they consider it stronger for our weaving method.
Thanks, Barbara, for that question. Well, if there are any more questions, we'll go ahead and stop it there. But thank you, Benita, so much for doing this presentation for us today and this evening. So learned a lot from it. I actually missed a question right here from D. Vicente. Are you selling any wool bags?
Ooh, I can't remember if we have any more wool bags right now, but if we do, we usually sell them for $2, I believe. I will double check, but you can reach out to our office for 928-724-6940 is my number, or 6941.
Hey, Benita, it's actually me, Denise Vicente.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you guys had any wool bags available. I know it's
I
shearing season.
I'll yeah. I'll have to look. I think we do. I just don't know where Felix might have stashed it.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, I'll reach out to you afterwards.
Okay. Sounds great.
Mhm.
Hey, Benita, Denise, this is Cadrell. We have a couple bags in the barn. You can get with me. I'll be there in the morning.
Okay, Denise, did you hear that? We do have some bags. You can reach
Okay,
out to
I'll
Kadrell to pick them up.
okay, sounds good. Thank you, Kudrell.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that. So, if there is any more questions, go ahead and feel free to unmute yourselves. There's not any more questions, then we'll go ahead and proceed on. That concludes our webinar for tonight. So, thank you, Benita, for doing this great presentation on wool, the NAIR program that you guys have. So, really excited for the wool program to start back up again. So a lot of great information that you really put out there. So appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, we'll go ahead and proceed on to our announcements just to let you guys all know that our next week webinar is going to focus on irrigation methods. This will be presented by Kevin Lombard from NMSU Farmington ASC Superintendent. This webinar, you're actually going to have to register. So if you would go ahead and go to our NSA project website and go ahead and click up on our upcoming events, it will show you this irrigation methods webinar and it will give you a link to register below. Then you'll be all set for the next webinar. And it's going to be on May 11th, starting from 5:30 all the way to 6:30. And like I have mentioned, we are on Facebook. We do have a YouTube channel. We record our webinars. And so if you happen to not have make it for the next upcoming webinar, that's going to be recorded and it will be on our YouTube channel. We have monthly newsletters that we send out monthly. So we do have a vacant position as a horticulture field assistant. If you want to, if you're interested, please contact Jesse. And we also, like I said, we have a website out there. So if you want to check it out, feel free. There's a lot of information on there that we share. So that concludes everything tonight. So thank you all for joining us this evening. And we hope that you have a good rest of your night. Thank you, everybody. To start off, the Navajo Sustainable Agriculture Project is a New Mexico cooperative extension initiative delivered in collaboration with a couple of our partners, which is the Nick College Land Grant Office and COPE, which stands for the Community Outreach and Patient Empowerment. Our project is funded by the USDA Outreach and Assistance for Socially Disadvantaged Farmers and Ranchers and Veteran Farmers and Ranchers program. So as a project, we aim to improve the operations, profitability, and sustainability of socially disadvantaged Navajo farmers and ranchers and veteran farmers and ranchers. We also encourage the increase of Navajo's farmers and ranchers' knowledge in the use of USDA programs and services. And this can be NRCS, FSA, rural development, risk management agencies, and other resource providers. And we also aim to increase our local production and consumption of fresh fruits and vegetables and promote healthy eating by Navajo families and individuals.